Imagine this. It's 1993. You're standing in the ruins of a city called Sarajevo. It's cold. You're starving. And your neighbor walks up to you. In the old world, before the war, he was a wealthy banker. He wore tailored suits. He drove a nice car. He lived comfortably. Now he looks broken, desperate. In his dirty hand, he's holding a solid gold necklace. Real gold. Heavy. Beautiful. In a normal economy, that necklace is worth 2 months' salary. It could buy a used car. It could pay for a vacation. He holds it out to you. He's begging. But he doesn't want cash. He doesn't want a check. He wants 1 pack of cigarettes and 3 cheap plastic lighters. Think about that trade. A fortune in gold for $3 worth of plastic. Why would anyone do that? Because the electricity is gone. The water is gone. Grocery trucks stopped coming weeks ago. In a city under siege, gold is just a heavy, shiny rock. You can't eat it. You can't burn it to stay warm. But a lighter, that's fire. That's the ability to boil dirty water so you don't die of dysentery. That's survival. This isn't a movie. This is a real story documented by a man named Selko Begovic. He survived that nightmare for over a year, and what he witnessed terrified him. He watched rich people with pockets full of gold starve to death. At the same time, he watched people with tools, people who knew how to fix things, people with practical skills, live like kings. Most people prepare for collapse by buying gold and silver. They say, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. I've said it myself. But when you look at the forensic evidence of what actually happens when an economy hits zero, gold isn't at the top of the list. It ranks far below a secret asset class that one group has quietly hoarded for centuries: the Amish. The Amish don't trust the stock market. They don't trust the electric grid. They rely on what I call the Amish Hedge: skills, land, tools, and community. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why $1,000 invested in the right tools can save your family, while $10,000 in gold bars can turn you into a target. Let's zoom out and look at the pattern, because history doesn't move in straight lines, it moves in circles, and the data tells the same story every single time. First, understand speed. Currency collapse happens far faster than your brain expects. We imagine it takes years. History says months, sometimes weeks. In Bosnia, society went from cash to pure barter almost overnight. In the first days, people still tried to use money. They didn't get it yet. But within weeks, prices exploded. Imagine bread costing $5 on Monday, $50 on Wednesday, and $500 by Friday. That's hyperinflation. Look at Venezuela. From 2016 to today, inflation hit 1,000,000%. That number is so large it's almost meaningless. Money became literal trash. People wove purses out of cash because the paper was worth more as a bag than as currency. They called the money dead. The government panicked. They announced new bills. People had 72 hours to exchange their old cash. 72 hours. Imagine being told your life savings will be illegal in 3 days. Imagine standing in line for days just to save what you worked for. Miss the window and you're broke. It happened in Argentina too. In the early 2000s, half the country fell into poverty almost overnight. If your savings were in cash or in the bank, they were wiped out. This is the first lesson of the Amish Hedge. Paper creates poverty. Tangible assets create safety. Here's the second part of the pattern. When money dies, society moves backward. We revert to barter. Utility becomes everything. In Venezuela today, fishermen pull their boats onto the beach. They don't sell fish for money. They wait for people from town. Those people carry rice, bananas, pasta. Food is traded for food. Farmers walk miles carrying sacks of lemons just to trade for flour. Hardware stores accept coffee beans as payment. Think about that. You need a hammer, that's a pound of beans. You need gasoline, that's 3 sacks of coffee. Why coffee? Because it's real. It's standardized. You can drink it. It gives energy. It has use value. This is economic reversion. Collapse pushes us back into a Stone Age economy, and in that economy, gold is useless. You can't patch a roof with gold. You can't treat an infected wound with silver. But the person who grows tomatoes, the person who fixes water pumps, the person with antibiotics, soap, and tools, that person survives. That person has power. Now the third lesson, the Great Depression. This was the ultimate stress test for the Amish Hedge. Farmers suffered. Crop prices collapsed. Some burned corn for heat because they couldn't afford coal. But look at what they had. They had land, gardens, orchards, cows for milk, chickens for eggs and meat, flour in 50-pound sacks. They had almost no cash, but they ate every night. Compare that to the cities. Factory workers lost jobs, wages were slashed. They had no gardens, no animals, no productive capacity. When the paycheck stopped, the food stopped. They stood in bread lines while farmers ate omelets. A viewer summed it up perfectly. His grandfather survived the Great Depression not because of gold, not because of savings, but because he had 4 acres and knew carpentry. Land plus skills equals survival. And this wasn't just theory. During World War II, the government admitted it. They launched the Victory Garden program. In 1943, 20 million Americans planted food in their backyards, not out of patriotism, but hunger. Those gardens produced 10 billion pounds of food in 1 year. 40% of America's vegetables came from ordinary people. By 1944, half admitted the truth. They weren't doing it for the war, they were doing it to survive. The math is simple. Farmland prints food. Stocks print nothing. Farmland is dinner. In 2008, the stock market crashed 46%. Farmland rose 17%. Between 2000 and 2019, stocks lost money in 28 quarters. Farmland made money in 26 of them. This isn't speculation, it's insurance. Which brings us to the fourth lesson. Skills are the ultimate currency. During the Great Depression, people survived by fixing things. Cooking, sewing, fishing, shoveling snow, washing windows. Every one of those solves a physical problem. In collapse, brands don't matter. Marketing doesn't matter. Only food, clothing, and shelter. If you can butcher a pig and preserve the meat, you're rich. If you can fix a broken bone or pull a tooth, you'll never starve. Doctors never went out of business. People paid them in chickens and firewood. A skilled carpenter is a walking asset. You can't steal his skill. You can't burn it in a fire. Gold just sits in a safe. It produces nothing. And now we arrive at the darkest lesson of all. What actually gets traded when law disappears? Selko Begovic saw it firsthand. He saw what became more valuable than diamonds. First, ammunition. In a lawless city, bullets become currency. People need them to hunt. They need ammo to protect their families, but Selko gives a very specific warning. Never trade ammunition with strangers. The moment you trade 10 bullets for a can of beans, that stranger now owns 10 bullets, and he only needs one of them to take his beans back. In a collapse, security becomes the real currency. Next is hygiene, and this part saves lives. Bleach became liquid gold because a few drops can purify gallons of dirty river water. Drink contaminated water and you don't get sick, you die. Bleach meant survival. Soap, toothpaste, feminine hygiene products all exploded in value. A bar of soap that cost 50 cents before the war traded for a dozen eggs during the siege. That's not inflation, that's survival economics. Medicine was even more valuable. Antibiotics, painkillers, first aid. People died from small cuts that became infected. No doctors, no hospitals, no help. If you had a bottle of amoxicillin, you could trade it for almost anything. But here's the insight that shocks people. Selko said to forget the expensive gas generator and instead buy 1,000 disposable Bic lighters. A generator costs $2,000. It's loud, it advertises that you have power and fuel, and it needs gas you won't be able to find. A plastic lighter costs $1. It's silent, fits in your pocket, and if you lose one, you still have 999 left. In a collapse, that lighter is priceless. Fire means boiling water, cooking food, and staying warm. Selko had a propane tank hidden in his house and used it to refill disposable lighters. He traded them for food, candles, and protection. He built an entire trading operation on cheap plastic because it solved an immediate survival problem. Gold didn't. During the crisis, gold collapsed in value. Warlords understood something desperate people didn't want to hear. You can't eat gold. Diamond rings were traded for soup, gold watches for bags of rice. Gold would be valuable after the war, but during the war, it was useless. If you're starving, you take the food, even if it means giving up your entire family fortune. And this isn't history, it's happening right now. In Venezuela, a woman named Kila Oval turned her backyard into a farm. She grows eggplant and passion fruit and trades them for pasta, sugar, and milk. She says her life now looks like her great-grandmother's because the modern economy collapsed and barter replaced money. A fisherman in a resort town hasn't been to the city in 2 years because money can't buy shoes or clothes, but fish can still be traded for rice. When currency dies, working a job becomes irrational. In Zimbabwe, when the dollar collapsed, basic antibiotics cost weeks of wages. If you had a job, you couldn't afford to get sick. If you had medicine, you were wealthy. But owning valuable items is only half the battle. Keeping them is harder. When your neighbor sees you have antibiotics and his child is sick, he stops being your neighbor and becomes a threat. This is where community matters. Movies tell us the survivor is a lone man in a bunker, but history shows he dies first. Studies of over 300,000 people show those with strong social ties had a 50% higher chance of survival. That's the same benefit as quitting smoking. Selko saw this firsthand. You didn't trade with strangers, you traded with people you trusted before the collapse. Trust became currency. The Amish understand this. They don't rely on insurance policies, they rely on neighbors who raise a barn together in a single day. That is their safety net. If you have supplies but no community, you're just a target. This brings us to the final myth, gold as a collapse hedge. During the Bosnian siege, gold had zero value because it produced nothing and solved no immediate problem. Land did. Land grows food, produces calories, and can be rented. During the 2008 crisis, stocks lost 46% while farmland gained 17%. Over decades, farmland delivered positive returns even when the rest of the economy was collapsing. The math is brutal and simple. Land feeds you. Gold just looks pretty while you starve. So where are we right now? Is this paranoia? Look at the map. The dominoes are already falling. Venezuela is at stage 5, total collapse. The currency is confetti. People are trading lemons for pasta. Turkey is at stage 3. Inflation is spiraling out of control. People are rushing to buy anything that isn't their own money. Lebanon is at stage 4. The banks locked their doors, froze accounts, and the currency lost 98% of its value in just 18 months. Imagine having $100,000 in the bank, and a year later, it barely buys a cup of coffee. And then there's the elephant in the room, the United States. $38 trillion in debt. That number is too big to feel real. So think of it this way. The U.S. government now spends more money just paying interest on the debt than it spends on the entire military. The credit card bill is bigger than the army. Central banks see what's coming. They're buying gold at the fastest pace since 1996. For the first time ever, they're buying more gold than U.S. treasuries. They're betting against the dollar. A viewer left a comment on my last video that stopped me cold. He said, "You assume currencies will collapse one by one. I think we're looking at a general collapse of the West. He's right. For the first time in history, every currency on Earth is fiat. None of it is backed by gold. None of it is backed by anything real. It's all faith. And when that faith breaks, it breaks everywhere at once. This won't be a recession. It will be a systemic failure. So the only question that matters is this: what do you do? How do you build the Amish hedge before the lights go out? It's a 5-step strategy. Step 1. Get land. It doesn't need to be 100 acres. A backyard works. A rooftop works. In Venezuela, people survive on food grown in pots on their balconies. You just need a way to turn sunlight into calories. Step 2. Build skills that cannot be outsourced. This is the part most people ignore. Carpentry, plumbing, mechanical repair, first aid. If the dollar goes to zero, a broken toilet is still a broken toilet. The person who knows how to fix it will always have value. These skills are unstealable wealth. The government can't tax them. A thief can't take them. They only disappear if you don't use them. Step 3. Build a barter bank. Stop saving paper. Start saving utility. Fill your shelves with items that last and solve real problems. Medical supplies, batteries, water filters, hygiene products, and yes, lighters. In a collapse, a box of tampons or a bottle of vodka is worth more than a stack of $100 bills. These items become currency because human needs never change. Step 4. Build the human hedge. You need a tribe. This is not optional. Go talk to your neighbors even if it feels awkward. Find out who gardens. Find out who owns tools. Find out who's a nurse. You're building a map of local assets. When the grid goes down, you don't want to be meeting your neighbors for the first time. You want to already be trading eggs for security. Step 5. Gold comes last, not first. You should own some precious metals, but only for phase 2. Gold is for the rebuild. It's for when the chaos settles and a new system emerges. It transfers wealth from the old world to the new one, but during the transition, during the panic, it's dead weight. If you buy gold before you buy food, you're digging your own grave. The evidence is clear. Bosnia, Venezuela, the Great Depression. Different places, different decades, same outcome. When banks close and trucks stop moving, your bank balance means nothing. Your stock portfolio means nothing. The only thing that matters is productive capacity. Can you grow something? Can you fix something? Do you have people who have your back? The question isn't if this will happen here. The math says it's inevitable. The only question is whether you'll be ready when it does. Imagine this scene. 2 years from now, you're standing in a grocery store. The shelves are empty. A loaf of bread costs $200 billion. The person in front of you is crying because their life savings can't buy a single slice. Then you look to your side. That person isn't panicking. They trade a dozen fresh eggs from their backyard for the last bag of flour. They go home, they bake bread, they eat. That's the difference between being a victim and being prepared. But supplies are only half the equation. You also need to know exactly when to act. There are 3 red flags that appear in every collapsing economy about 30 days before the currency hits zero. Most people miss them until it's too late. Click the video on your screen right now. I break down those 3 signals so you can move before the shelves are empty. Click it. I'll see you there.